Welcome to Cosmic Communion.
So, in this translation of the I Ching from Master Alfred Wong, it is translated as abolishing the old, lake over fire. This gua takes the image of the conflict between fire and water. It describes the truth of revolution. Revolution takes place not merely to overthrow the old. Its purpose is to establish the new. The new should be better than the old. And on Monday, when we were tapping into this, I felt like that was the most clean, precise way to get to 49. It isn't this rebellious nature of like, just like get rid of it because we can. It's like, no, something better is coming. It should be better than the old. We're only replacing what no longer serves the whole.
Yeah. And something I was reading in the Gene Keys as well is that frequently in revolution, what happens is we're like, burn it all down.
Yeah.
But really, a successful revolution, a wise revolution, is keeping what works and
Yeah.
burning what doesn't.
Yeah.
Keeping what works, even evolving what works, right? But not throwing everything out, right? We're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We have learned a lot. We don't need
Yes.
to start from ground zero.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the shadow expression, which is reaction, that emotional reactivity, is that energy that leads humanity to burn it all to the ground, right? Because it's coming not from this like more measured. Actually, now I kind of want to open my I Ching. Let me grab it. It's right here. Let's see what this one says. So, in this version of the I Ching by Master Hua Ching Ni, Revolution, Reformation. A successful revolution is a matter of proper timing and correct implementation. What were we talking about earlier with the
Mm,
timing?
yes.
Only when the goal is just and approved carefully can a righteous and beneficial revolution be achieved. So I really love this one because it speaks to like, you're not going into a revolution without a plan. You know? Like, you
Yeah.
have to have a sense of the future that you're co-creating when you light the match.
Yes.
Otherwise, it just turns into anarchy and what's created in revolutions when we overthrow those that are in power is it creates power vacuums for other, kind of like nefarious entities and groups to come in. We're committing to the process. The other thing that I was really feeling into because it's like we keep doing these episodes and then there's like so much more that comes through that I feel like I want to share. And what I remembered is that what we're doing is really weaving a tapestry.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
right now we're at the beginning, and we're beginning to see how these things come together, but we don't really know
Yeah.
what's unfolding. And I think we're going to look back at these conversations and be like, whoa,
Yeah.
like just seeing all of these connections. But
Oh, I remember what I wanted to say. So, my thought with this kind of energy in kind of the shadow expression reaction that I mean, it's such a prevalent theme in society just in general. And so the thing that I was kind of thinking is like what we've been unfolding inside of heavenly bodies has been this like very cyclical following of these energies. So for me, I can really connect the dots. I can see, oh, okay, here's where Capricorn season was taking me, has led me into Aquarius. So I can kind of see the cycles and the seasons, the way they weave in this tapestry that you're talking about. What do we do though when we're not grounded in that? Because I haven't always been there. Like I haven't always been like watching the thread. I haven't always been like connected to like, oh, okay, like the that deep desire. I don't it's been how do you connect to something like this energy when you have no clue what you're even dreaming? Like, what's my dream and what's their dream, you know? And so I feel like that energy is starting to dawn on me just as far as like, okay, we're here and we're able to have these conversations because we've gone through this process. Obviously, it's like kind of a natural emerging uh conversation that we're holding. But I do remember this time last year where I wouldn't have had any fucking basis for, like, what are my dreams? So how do I not react? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, the only
Mm.
thing that I can, because you said something so beautiful in there is, like, when we can reach that gift level when we have when we have this greater dream, right? Like Aquarius has
Mhm.
been really talking about that. The first part with the root energy, it's like holding this image of something in the future that we want. And
Yeah.
that being very connected to our sense of self, our inner identity, our anima. But like how do we even what happens when we're not connected to that part of ourselves?
Yeah. I love this question. I feel like I just really feel like I wanna weave 13 into this conversation. The more I've been contemplating 49, the more weaving that I'm seeing with 13 and our conversation that felt so rich, and then there's been, like, so much richness that we've exchanged in voice memos since recording the episode on 13.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
such a good one.
but this piece on getting really honest about where we're at.
Mm,
I feel like that's where we have to begin. What is present in this moment? And if it's a lot of like discontent with the way that the world is, with the way that our life is, I think following that thread of what doesn't
mhm,
feel in alignment naturally leads us to the vision of another way.
I love this, yes.
And it's like ultimately the discontent, the rage against the machine, the rage against the systems,
Yeah, yeah,
the suffering, all of that is the prima materia for the alchemical process, which is what revolution is, right? It's an
absolutely.
alchemical process. And so when we bypass the suffering and the discontent, we're actually cutting ourselves off from the fuel that we need to sustain the revolution.
Mm,
And
yeah,
49 really speaks to the collective revolution. And so in the Gene Keys, it's part of the Ring of the Whirlwind. And
mm,
there are only two gene keys in the Ring of the Whirlwind, and it's 49 and it's 55. And so the way that Richard Rudd speaks about it is that 55 is that like inner, more like individual journey of liberation, whereas 49 is very much about collective liberation.
mhm,
Um, and so I think there's just something about this that keeps weaving back to 13 and how the role of 13 in that gift and citic state is to hold space for the truth of just the truth to
yeah,
come forward and for that truth to be faced. And in that witnessing of the truth, that is what alchemizes the trauma. This is something that Kodie and I were chatting about a little bit more today in the ways it's like showed up in our own personal lives. It's like through having your trauma witnessed
mhm,
fully the level of witnessing I'm speaking to is that, like, citic level empathy of, like, I'm so there in this experience with you, that I'm feeling it with you, and through that process of having that truth that we've kept secret for so long brought into the light and seen by another, that in and of itself is the alchemical process. And so
Mhm.
we need to be doing this at a collective level in order to have a successful revolution.
Mm.
And so this fellowship of man, the Queen's Council, which is this energy entity that Kodie and I came together around, was this call to hold space for the Queen's Council. And the Queen's Council has been revealing itself to us over the
Yeah.
last few years. And really, what we're coming to see is that the role of the Queen's Council is to hold space for that truth and reconciliation process.
Uh, the thing that as you're kind of threading 13 and 49 together in its sequence is that, you know, what we were like feeling in frequency and this idea of discord last week has now moved into the solar plexus into an actual awareness. And
Mm.
the solar plexus is so it's so in our body. It is something that we are viscerally aware of. You called it in our previous recording that is not available, the seat of our power. And that is but it's something that we witness. You're bringing the awareness around this witnessing. It's something that we witness with our minds. We feel that in our body. We're aware of it. And so there's something here too as we're beginning to move into solar plexus season. So Aquarius 4930, both in the solar
Mhm.
plexus. Pisces is majorly solar plexus placements as well. And so we're really just warming up for this wave experience inside of Pisces, inside of the depth of Pisces. And I think what I'm starting to kind of like feel into is that like that wave that is different than like being crashed against the shore or like against like I don't know, like the seawall. And more of like, I'm floating in the wave, I'm with it, I'm surrendered to it because it's the only truth that I can know, and it's moving through me, and when I'm not in resistance to it, I'm not being thrashed into the wall, or like, I'm not struggling.
When you're not resisting to it, you're letting life take you where you're meant to go.
Yeah.
And it's important to have vision, right? To have an idea of what you would like your life to look like, what you would like the world to look like. But ultimately, it's just an idea and it's never going to manifest that way.
What
Um,
yeah, and I love that you bring this up because I feel like that was speaking to that question before. Sometimes we have the vision and sometimes we're just beginning. And whether you have the vision, like you can work within both of those things. So if you've been in a season of like really cultivating it and you took this winter to really like deepen into your vision, well, now we're moving into this 49 energy of like how do I work with this power inside of my body? And if you didn't hold that vision, this is ground zero right now as
mhm.
you're listening. And the call of 49, what would you say what is the call of 49 in that context?
Let burn what is ready to die.
Yes.
Because I think with 41, right? So let's like take it back to the beginning of the new year. According to the gene keys in human design, the new year begins when the sun moves into gate 41 late January. We
Yes, I'm so glad
begin
you're saying this.
in 41 in the void, right? And
Yes.
so when we're in the void, we're tasting and seeing all of the infinite possibilities, all of the infinite timelines that could manifest.
Mhm.
And then we're moving into 19 and we're being faced with what needs to go in order for those potential timelines to come in? What needs that I identified in 41 are not currently being met? And what changes
Mm.
do I need to make today to meet my needs tomorrow? This
Mhm.
this evolution of needs, I really see that that's this, like, message with 19 is, like, our needs are always changing and always evolving as we're always changing and always evolving.
Yes,
And
yeah.
so giving ourselves the space to tune in and be like, "Actually, what I needed last year, what I needed last week is not what I need now." In order to step into this expanded version of myself that I got a little glimpse of when we were in 41, I need a lot more resources, you know? Or I need
Yeah,
a lot less of these resources that I have. It's actually cluttering my space. I need to
yeah,
actually take a lesson from 41 and let that go. So
yep.
the resources that I need to step into this new timeline can find me. Then we move into 13 and it feels like so we start collective, tribal, collective, and so it feels like then after and I think there's this thing with tribal where it's like it's a tribal gate, but it's also very individual as well because it's about our individual needs and then the individual needs of the people in our tribe. And
Mhm.
so then we like venture into 13 and it's more like
It's I feel like it's centered around, um like, I love seeing this pattern just in the entire wheel, is that, like, most of the 12 zodiacs have, like, this G center moment in the middle of them that kind of, like, it, like, zips everything up, like, we're going back to the heart of it all, and that's what it feels like the story that you're telling about 41 and 19 and, like, the needs and, like, the spaciousness, right? We're, like, creating this spaciousness, and then in 13, we feel it. What
mhm,
have I cultivated or not? And so
mhm.
it's like that frequency in some senses, the G center is also very visceral as well, like, also, like, a very body feeling in a sense that's very different than solar plexus for sure.
I feel like there's something where it's like in 19 we're getting attuned to more of the like physical material needs, and then in
Mhm.
13 we're tuning more into this like the energy in our life,
Yeah.
right? And like what is in harmony, what is in discord, like where is there dissonance in my life,
And where is
and
this connected?
where
Like,
is it
where
coming from? Yeah, like where is the source, where is the root of that
yeah,
discord, of that dissonance in my life?
yeah.
And
Mm,
how can I zoom out to begin to see that the root of this dissonance is this larger karmic story that I've been playing out?
yeah.
That's something I really wanted to loop back on as far as the 13 conversation in the way that you were really connecting it to that the G center really has so much to do with our karma
Mhm. Yeah.
because it's pulling us like from birth to death and all of the experiences that we meet along the way.
I think, like, fully having gone through 13, you brought this forward, which was, like which came from this, conversation we were having about food, and, like, I think you had mentioned, like, you learned in the Whole Food 30, there's either, like
Mm.
there's food that is, like, health affirming or there's food that's, like, health denying, and I felt like we both felt like that was such, like, a poignant part of the story of this, like, karmic loop. This is so much also about decisions, the way that how do I say that? It's like the karma is still gonna show up on our timeline, it's like this story that's meant to play out, but we get to choose the way in which we interact with that, and so we
Mhm.
can continue looping, and we can continue, like, choosing to live this narrative, or we can choose this
We
this
can
different
choose
story.
we can
We can
choose to write a new story, and I
to
love
write
that you're
yes.
bringing it around to, like I think that's really the thing that I wanted to highlight that maybe didn't come forward in the 13 episode is like, this is the channel of storytelling.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
story are we telling about our lives?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Like,
if
what myth are
you
we
don't
writing?
write your own story, it will be written for you.
Mhm.
And the way that it is written for you is through the shadow of 49, this emotional reactivity, right? It's like that's actually how they keep us stuck in this very like specific reality is through emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
And so they have their stories, right, that they're projecting out for the collective, and then the collective is having this, like, emotional reaction to that, that is then creating the storyline that they want us to be living out, which is the way that we give our power away, bringing it back to the fact that the solar plexus is our power center. That's the way that we give our power away is through being stuck in this emotional reactivity.
So, something just pinged me just now as you were talking. It's like, they. Who are they? There is a they, right? There's a they in all of our lives, but there's also an us. There's also a
Mhm.
me. And so I'm a theyer, like, the powers that be. We all know.
I also just feel like they is like the program.
They is the program.
You
They
know,
is
it's like it's the
that
conditioning
person.
force. Whatever
Yeah.
you wanna call it, whatever you don't have to subscribe to any agendas or whatever, but I do feel like there is a conditioning force that we are up against. That
Yeah.
if we are not that is trying to keep us not conscious.
Yeah. Uh,
I don't know.
so this is the thing I want to I
Yeah,
this is actually the thing that I'm questioning as we're talking is like, is there? Or is it neutral and we are the source of the they? We are giving the power to the they, which is looping us into 49, which is looping us into the solar plexus, which is the seat of our power. So, yes, absolutely, we talk about they, whoever they are, that person, the powers that be, the blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, because there is, or the program they, but also the question that has arisen just now is like, where do I begin and where do they end?
Totally. Ultimately, it is all one. We are all one.
Where- Yeah,
And so the they, whatever it is just
here,
here to serve as a polarity so we can understand ourselves, right? The darkness exists so we can understand light. We don't understand light. We can't see light without darkness,
yeah,
right? And so it's this like but it's so written in this like archetypal human story, right? That like we're up against something that wants
yeah.
to oppress us, that we have to liberate ourselves from. And ultimately, yeah, it's all God. They is God, we are God, me is God, you is God, everything is God. It doesn't really matter.
So it's actually just a byproduct of living in a binary.
It's just
It's
it's
not
the rules of
neutral.
this. It's
But
the
it's the
rules.
rules.
Yeah, it's just like that is the third dimension. The third dimension is we live in a field of polarity, of duality. We live in a dualistic universe.
Yeah.
Biverse is what I would say. We live in
The
the
Bible.
biverse, right? Um, and we chose we God that we all are chose to do this so that we could know ourselves better.
And I think, isn't that interesting with the gate of principles to consider the idea of, you know, everything that we're talking about in the gate or the bridge 49 is that we chose this. We chose this. And I was having a conversation earlier today where someone was talking about, very real trauma and abuse that happened to them. And like, did they choose that?
I believe so.
But like that doesn't mean
Before
that
this lifetime.
it doesn't mean that it's any less painful.
Nope.
And that is, I feel like, at the core of the solar plexus and the seat of our power, and gate 30 and gate, or not 39, gate 49 is the, excuse me, the acceptance of that. And
Mhm.
we're going to have a lot of solar plexus coming up, so we have a long time to like figure this out. But I think that we're really going to be seeing a story of that unfolding, how much victimization is originated from the solar plexus and from these ideas that we hold around this place in our human experience.
100%. And even the victimization, it's all like programmed archetypal patterns,
Yeah.
right? So, like the drama triangle, the victim, the perpetrator or the persecutor, and the savior, that is an archetypal pattern that has been imprinted in humanity since, the dawn of time. That's what creates the drama. We're here for the drama.
We're here for the drama.
It is a movie.
And then the irony is that we get victimized by the drama. And that's what I'm like, that's what I'm seeing, and I keep hearing the words, um, "The truth is a sword." The truth is a sword. And the contemplation of why this keeps popping into my head is like, do we cut the veil of ignorance with the sword, or do we initiate violence against the self?
Mm. Oh.
And I I still don't know, like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what I just said. But there's just something about this, like, the truth is a sword.
It's back to what you were bringing up about this idea that they're actually okay, we'll have to dive into this a little bit, but in this specific thing that we're speaking about, there is no neutrality. Things are either life affirming or they're killing you. And so we're either using that sword on ourselves or we're using it to cut through the bullshit to the truth. There's no neutral. And I think this is like maybe one of the biggest programs in the collective psyche is this idea of um it creates this like passivity where people end up feeling helpless to change their circumstances. And so it might not look on the outside like it's self-hatred or self-harming, but it is because you're either making decisions that are life affirming or you're slowly killing yourself. And I mean, whatever. I have 15 and Gate of Extremes in my South node, so like and we're actually both born in the quarter of duality.
Yep.
And so I think it's really interesting that we're always kind of having conversations and grappling with this polarity, with this duality.
Yeah.
Um,
Truth is a sword. I have sat in so many sessions with so many emotional authorities who are terrified of the power of truth that they bring to
Mm.
any given environment. Terrified of allowing that power to come forward in themselves, like, just within themselves, and then also relationally, because it's like, "Oh, no," like, you're and I think that human design, the way that we've learned about it, is not necessarily incorrect, like, it's not incorrect, right? Whether it's defined or not, we feel a wave, like, I feel when my emotions are on a wave. However, there is just there's, a way of which that's spoken about that is very victim narrative. You're a victim to your wave, not you're just a witness. This word I love. I'm really loving that you brought that forward. There's something here about this, especially when we're looking at an awareness center, the witnessing of truth
Mm.
feels like that's where we start moving from this motorized energy inside of the solar plexus, which is currently mutating into just the plain, like, the sword of truth, right? Like,
Yeah.
here's what it is. But I see so many emotional beings in resistance to their truth, and, like, I just always kind of wonder, like, is that what, like, makes the wave like, longer or more
I've
intense?
as a completely open solar plexus, my experience with the solar plexus, whether you have it defined or undefined, is the longer you avoid a truth, the longer you will be in the low. Because the whole point of the low is that it is bringing you to a new depth of awareness.
Just get you're getting it,
Guys,
guys.
and so when we avoid going all the way in to that
Um,
awareness, to that truth, that's what
prayer hands.
that's what prolongs the wave because, life, spirit, soul, whatever is like, "No, bitch, you need to face this truth. I'll keep you here for years. You can keep avoiding it,
I
but
think about
you will not come out of this wave until this truth is faced."
and I think about how all of us in our society are raised to not face the truth, right?
Right.
If it doesn't fit the narrative, if it doesn't conform or homogenize to what is expected of you, and so then you layer that onto being an emotional authority. Oh, I could see how there's a major victim mentality there because, "Oh, I'm here to know. I'm consistently knowing, and I can't know because this is stopping me in my tracks daily. This means I can't function the way that I'm expected to because I know the truth,
Yeah.
and I'm hitting a low every freaking day. So now I need to change my job. I need new friends. I need to move states." Like, there's so much truth that can be avoided, that gets compounded, that now I'm kind of like, I'm not backtracking on it, but I see how that victim mentality is there because that would be extremely difficult to be plugged into that consistently, processing that.
And to not have the cultural context, the social context to hold that, because it is a lot
Yeah.
to hold. It's like they are
Yes.
holding that for the collective, bringing it back to, like, I think the way
Oof.
that Cody
Yeah.
and I really want to look at human design, to me, the whole purpose of human design is that it shows us how we're here to be in community and be in relationship with one another and what all of our unique, individuated, differentiated roles are within the collective. And so the role of the emotional being is to go into those depths and bring the community the truth,
Yep.
to tune into a truth that is beyond time and space,
Yep.
that pierces through the veil.
Yep.
It's a
Yes.
transcendent truth. It's not like a, "This is my truth." It's like, it's a transcendent truth. It's like
Yes.
capital T truth.
Yep.
And
Yep.
when there is no space for that truth to be received and held,
And
that is
witnessed.
that is a heavy weight to bear. I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah. Wow.
And
I'm
I
really
think,
feeling the weight of that right now.
yeah, and I
Like,
and some
now I get it.
mhm. And I also wanna loop back to what you were saying about the solar plexus being in mutation, and that, like, the truth is our power, right? Like, the solar plexus is the power center, and because this is the newest center to evolve in humanity, and the center is still mutating, we don't quite know how to hold and wield our power yet. And
Yes.
so that is why this emotional reactivity, again, bringing it back to 49, like, that's why this is creating so much chaos and violence in the world. This
Yeah.
this gene key, this gate, this bridge is the energy at the shadow frequency that leads us to kill our fellow brothers and sisters, to kill animals, to kill other humans in the name of God. Bringing
Yep.
it back to 19, right? This channel is also about God. This
Yeah.
channel is about this, like, yeah, this delusion of killing other humans in the name of God. That's how it's manifested in the shadow frequency, because and like looping it back around to like this all really being about truth, right? It's like because we think, yeah, I don't know. That's a
No,
whole
it's because
tangent there.
we each have there are universal truths, and then there are moment truths, there are my truths, there are different layers to truth. And I think that especially, yes, this part of it being kind of like the newest part of our evolution, we're still really learning how to hold the weight of many truths. How is there, the truth of the law, right? The law of the universe, the law of God. That's overarching. But then I have to exist inside of that, and I have many truths that come forward through me. And that's what we're talking about here in this conversation is like 49 comes forward and speaks to a truth and says no more, or or like revolution is needed, or something isn't working here. That you brought this forward the other day. It's the butcher, right? It's like it's that hard and fast, it's quick,
Mhm.
and it's reactionary. And so we are still learning, and it's the only motorized awareness center too, right? So there's just an extra edge to the solar plexus that the spleen and the ajna don't have.
It's just something about this, like, it's just that we don't know how to wield this power yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's why we get reactive, right? It's like because we feel that energy. We feel all of the energy of the wave, but we don't know how to channel it yet. I'm getting like visuals of like Avatar, the like water benders. It's like we don't know how to like harness the power of this awareness, the power of the emotional wave to create the worlds that we desire to live in, to create the life that we desire to live. That's what we're in
Yeah.
the process of learning right now. Um, and ultimately, I do feel that, the sign of a true adept or a master is somebody who you surrender so totally and so completely to the wave that it just alchemizes in an instant.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
I have experienced that before. It's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go all the way into this pain and suffering right now. I'm just gonna drop down like, a lead brick in the ocean. I'm just gonna drop straight down into it." And honestly, those have been some of the most exhilarating, like, ecstatic experiences of my life,
Yeah.
is going all the way in, and that is, like, when we can learn to do that, like, that is true, like, emotional mastery. And the other thing that has been on my mind, because it's one of my mantras for this year, which is total non-resistance to what is, and neutrality in the face of what I don't prefer. And
Mm.
so that, especially the second one, is really speaking to 49 and how we can move from that shadow of reactivity to the gift of, I think the gift is, yeah, it's revolution. So, and this comes back to like the calculated piece of revolution, where it's like when we're initiating a revolution from a reactive state, we're not actually going to be creating anything that we actually want.
Mhm. Yes.
How we can like begin to cultivate neutrality and be like, okay, I don't like that, right? I don't prefer this,
Yep.
but I'm not letting it hijack my system and take over my decision making.
Yes.
I'm letting
Yes.
it inform me. I'm receiving that information. And then I'm going to
Yes.
make my little plan over here for how I'm going to wage this revolution. And
Yeah.
the title for this chapter is Changing the World from the Inside. It really is, all revolution begins as an inner revolution.
And and that's what we're learning with Aquarius is the revolution is within. So like I really love anchoring it back because we can start expanding these and this is a beautiful thing to do what we're doing in this conversation. Expand these ideas and they kind of go out. And that's really informative. It helps us contextualize what it is we're talking about. But I love going, okay, wait, that's inside of you. Everything, if we're relating to this information, so you gather everything that we're talking about, every feeling essence that is being cultivated in this conversation, then you go, oh, wait, what would that feel like inside of me and from within me? Instead of it being this like strange projected experience out there that I'm not attached to, because all of this work is about the reconnection it's not even reconnection, it's the the remembering that we've been connected all along. Like, that idea of separation has been, like, the biggest illusion of our entire lives. Um, and same goes for these energies, like, they're not separate from you. This isn't some, like, out there idea. This is a part of you. We all hold 49, the gate of principles, in our body, like, in some thematic of our life, this will show up. I wanted to read from the definitive book of human design because, um, I feel like this really also highlights, like, the gate there are some of the gates in this book that I really like the translation of. I think gate 49 has always been one that I have not liked,
Mhm.
um, especially with a hanging 19. I have a sister who has a 1949. And so I was always compromised by this like, this is, like I feel like
Same.
for anybody who is listening to this episode, please understand there's, like, massive amount of conditioning and, like, just humanity coming through that, like, can't see what it doesn't see. So I would love to invite anybody into the conversation about 49 who has maybe a like, internalized idea of, like, a consistent expression of this, but okay, I digress. So, it says, "Because gate 49 places you at the top of these hierarchies." When did it do that, by the way? Like, okay. "You feel a need to be obeyed. This translates into you exerting the power to accept or reject a person, or their request for access to your resources, or their appeal to initiate a revolution on their own or someone else's behalf. What? Your sensitivity or insensitivity towards other people and animals and their specific needs is based on a resonance with your own principles. So I feel like it's dancing around it, right? We know that resources are at play. We know because it's a tribal energy. I have a hard time getting to the hierarchy place.
Yeah.
And
I
maybe this is a defined this is a seat of the power kind of conversation.
yeah. So all of that just leaves me feeling really confused about 49.
Yeah.
And
Like, I've always been
going
really
back
confused
to
about
your
49.
post from the other day, your reel from the other day, like, if what did you say? Like, if the information is making you more confused, then, like, maybe reconsider.
Maybe reconsider. So, I also feel like this is another space that we can and I'm not trying to be overly judgmental because there's a lot of value in this book. Like, I've
Totally.
learned massive amounts of information from this book. But
Yeah, maybe, like, okay,
rejection, marriage, divorce, animals, sensitivities,
let's,
insensitivity.
like yeah, I wanna, like let's, like, kinda, like I wanna, like, massage out the parts that feel true,
Relevant? Yeah.
relevant, supportive, expansive, and then allow 49 to come in and just burn away the other pieces that are maybe creating confusion in the field around this. And so I do understand that this conversation around like who gets access to the resources, and it's like and let's just like talk about it in very like layman's terms. Like we are going to co-create community with people who have aligned values, right? Because essentially those values are like the laws of the community. We need to have some sort of mutual understanding and shared vision for the way that we want to live our lives and the direction that we feel like the community is headed in. And so it doesn't really make sense to give somebody who doesn't align with those values and those principles access to your resources, right? Like that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You don't need to
Yeah.
overcomplicate it, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
um this conversation around this being the channel of marriage and divorce. So let's like I want to go into that. So what is marriage really about? Where did it start? Marriage as the and I'm speaking about the institution of marriage. I'm not speaking about Hieros Gamos sacred union like the alchemical marriage. I'm speaking about the institution of marriage. It started as a means to consolidate resources, right?
Yeah.
Your family has
Mm,
this land and you have this land, and so you're gonna be paired together. It's like it was really about this, like, consolidation of power and resources. Um, and then
mm,
that and what's underneath that? Underneath that is, again, that those shared principles, those shared visions for the future, those
yeah.
shared, values, and so when those values no longer align, that's when we want to get divorced, right? I will say
Mhm.
the 49 does not fuck around. I have Saturn in 19, and when Saturn was transiting 49, when Saturn was in Aquarius, that was literally when I decided to get divorced.
Oh my god.
So, like,
That's
this
so wild to me.
literally.
Yeah, and it's like, okay. it is that butcher energy. It's that,
It's like,
"Do
I
you
am
see?"
not giving you access to the resource that I am.
Yes,
Any
yes.
longer. I am not giving you access to my energetic resources any longer because you are
Oh,
not supporting me in expanding my resources. You no longer align with my values and my vision for my life and our world. So we don't have business here anymore. Butcher comes in, we're done.
yeah. Oh my god.
And so
Mic
right
drop.
now, the 19 and the 49 are breaking apart. At least according to Ra, this was part of the prophecy is that the 19 and the 49 are breaking apart. And so this is part of this evolution that we're seeing around marriage and relationships is that his, theory is that we're just not going to see as many marriages anymore because this is the frequency that was conditioning us to get married, essentially, to do this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
now
now
I
it's
think
breaking
we're
apart.
returning more to this, idea of more of like a community living rather than being very tribal focused, very focused on the family and the bloodline, which is also very much what 49 is about. It's like these are wars over bloodline stuff, right? Like over the
Yeah.
tribe.
Forever and ever, yeah. Yep.
But now we're in the age of Aquarius, baby. Pluto's at Aquarius. And that's very much about this like global community, this global family, this remembering that actually we're all part of the same family.
Which
um,
this is really interesting to me because, like, even in the Bible, like, if you go read, like, Genesis and, like, all of the beginning, like, a lot of the, I don't know, 1st through 6th books of the Old Testament, so much of it is recordings of names and people and their lineages. And what that made me think of is, like, these were lineages of God, right? These were people that were blessed by God, and so they were being marked, and so that's actually, like, kind of blowing my mind right now because it's like people were honoring and, uh, they were honoring God within one another, if you really think
mhm,
about it from that, like, that 1949 of, like, this merit, like, that was a time where it was like, "Well, I'm giving my daughter to this marriage because this is a man of God." He descends straight from,
mm,
this specific lineage that were said to have been blessed by the hand of God. And so
hmm.
that's, like, pulling this, like, spiritual aspect of the solar plexus into the conversation of this tribal nature of how we've evolved together in marriage too.
Wow,
I
that's
know.
really blowing my mind because of that, like really how intertwined marriage and God has been. And again,
And
like that 19, right? It's that need for God. That is that adrenalized pressure, that
yes,
energy that powers our search for
yeah.
God.
So
And
we
that
can
leads us to marriage. Now we can take
and
a little detour into like really what marriage is about, union, right? The marriage of opposites, the coming together. That is how
so
we that's how we transcend duality.
that and it's like we're just trying to get to that place of God within one another. That's 1949. We're just
Mm,
trying to get to that place of God within one another. We wanna worship that within one another, but when we forget it in ourselves, we forget it in ourselves, and that's when the shadow comes in.
oof.
That's when that neediness, that insensitivity because my needs aren't being met, mine. And so then that shadow frequency gets pulled into the karmic loop. We continue perpetuating this cycle. We see it enveloped into even just like the institution of what marriage has become and what we know of it as today. But at its core and at its origin was a search for God in each other, in union with one
Mm,
another.
mhm.
Oh,
Wow.
wow. And if we just, like, looked at every person that we loved like that, that's pretty special. That's pretty miraculous.
Yeah. And I really feel like with this mutation that we're experiencing with 1949 breaking off and kind of the traditional family unit um, disintegrating and evolving, what I have experienced is this level of like intimacy and union with non romantic partners, right? Including
Yes.
Cody.
Yes. Yeah,
But,
no,
like,
like,
really,
belonging.
there's just this, like, deep love and, like Luna and I were talking about this. She was like, "I feel like we're in a sacred relationship," you know? And it's so beautiful, and I just, like, love so much because a lot that was coming up for me around my divorce, which a lot of women experience, is that in this, like, idea of what marriage should be, we're putting so much pressure on the romantic partner, on the husband or wife to be everything to us. Esther Perel's work talks about this a lot. Um, and that's just not it's just not realistic to have one person meet all of your needs. It's actually completely delusional. Um, and so, I don't know. I just think that it's so beautiful to see all of the ways that I get to experience love and, like, true intimacy and connection in this post, kind of divorced life that I'm living. I'm almost like it's actually been what year is it? Yeah, it's been almost 2 years exactly since
Yeah,
I got divorced,
yeah. Wow.
and I feel yes, I still desire to have a life partner, but it's not coming from a place of lack of love or lack of intimacy or a void space. I feel so held in my relationships. And so I just wanted to share that story because I'm seeing it happen in the collective right now. One, I mean,
Yeah,
especially like, oh my God, the last 2
totally
years,
agree.
like so many people getting divorced and breaking up. People finding their, partners, their soulmates, but then also just like bringing awareness to all of these other kinds of love and connection and intimacy that we get to experience that are just as potent and meaningful and powerful. We tend to, elevate or preference, you know, that happily ever after. And Eisen, who's a, man that we both love and follow on Instagram, like he shared a post the other day that's like, that is a psyop. Like,
Yeah.
that's not real.
That whole post was, like, 1949 coded.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, like, if you're listening to this, we need to tag that post
Yeah, I will.
in this episode because, yeah, wow. That's where we go searching. I mean, the solar plexus is the seat of our personal power. The solar plexus is the place of our personal power, which is found in our emotions. So if we think about that, then yes, going straight down and deep into that, and that our emotions are also the bridge and the connection to God. That is a way one of the ways that we feel God in our experience. And so when we continue chasing that externally outside of us in people, in food, in resources, in all these different external things, then we're never really connecting to God outside of us until we connect to God inside of us.
Mhm.
And yeah, wow. There it is. That's it.
That's it. That's beautiful.
Oh,
I'm
solar plexus
really
season.
yeah, I'm really excited to see what is unearthed this solar plexus season.
Me too.
Actually, I was kind of breaking up last solar plexus season too.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that's kind of yeah.
Yeah. That's when it all kind of started beginning,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
The inklings were coming through.
Yeah. And then obviously the previous year I was trained for, so but I feel like I've done so much like it's like I've been doing my pruning, right?
Yeah.
So when we're doing our pruning,
Yeah, it doesn't
then
need to be a it doesn't
it,
need to be a butcher block. It can be
right.
a
That's I think
gentle
yeah, this like when we're just regularly in the flow of like facing the truths that are coming up, then
mhm.
it doesn't turn into this like big dark scary truth that I've been avoiding for my whole life that now I
Yep.
have to face.
And now it feels so large I can never face it. Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
I love this conversation.
I'm excited to
I would love to hear from anybody who listens to this. Like, what did it I think
me
Cody and I
too.
really wanna, like, hear from y'all. Community is
Yeah.
literally the most important thing to us, and so if you're listening to these episodes and they're moving you, you're feeling inspired, even if you don't like them, like, reach out, let us know.
And also, like, I feel like I love saying this. I love saying this. Like, I don't think what I'm saying or transmitting or, like, thinking about this is the truth. Like, I don't think that it's the absolute truth about 49. I think these are some concepts and really cool ideas that we're sharing. But yeah, I think that's why I want to be in conversation with other
Mhm.
people and with community is like, what does it actually feel like? What would happen if we all just were like, like what about and then like this beautiful intricately woven tapestry of just even 49
Mhm.
gets kind of unfolded.
It's like, so the whole point of this podcast is to commune with the cosmos, and we everybody should be communing with the cosmos
Everyone should do that.
from our
And
perspective at
that's what
least. And
we're
so
yes,
like we're
encouraging.
bringing like I'm bringing my communion, right? I'm bringing my flavor of 49. Cody's bringing her flavor of 49. We've cultivated these flavors through our lived experiences, through our studies, through what we've observed out in the world. And we're limited in that, right? Those are only our perspectives, our lived
Yep.
experiences. And
Yep.
so I think really the whole point of this project is to weave a more complete vision and understanding of what these frequencies really are. So
Yes,
this
that's
is
it.
kind of inspiring me to just noodle on a way to really like receive more feedback and like insight from the community because I would
Yeah.
personally love to my 13 would love to tuck that in somewhere and do something with it
Yes.
eventually.
Yes. Get people involved somehow. That would be so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Ooh, maybe we do a
Um,
little like phone in like
I was thinking a phone in would be so fun.
yeah.
Like a dial in line.
Yeah.
Like, hi, Cody and Sarah. This is what 49 means to me.
Oh my god, I love that. Okay, we're
That's
doing it.
adorable.
It is
Oh my
done.
God. It is. Consider it done.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Cosmic Communion. If you'd like to dive deeper into these energetics with Kodie and Sarah, we invite you to join us inside Heavenly Bodies, a space for cosmic synthesis where we weave together our embodied experience of human design, the gene keys, astrology, and so much more. If you're interested in diving deeper into your human design chart, or maybe you're just now coming into human design and ready to receive personalized guidance and insight into your unique frequency, I'm currently offering one-on-one human design readings. You can go ahead and find the link in the show notes to book a session. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Cosmic Communion. We will commune with you next week.